a lawyer, I've worked with many victims of scams and people who've been missold investments. I can tell you that it affects all types of people. It affects the most cynical and most savvy businessmen. It affects very intelligent people. It also affects people who are perhaps vulnerable. Indeed, I work with the official solicitor, and we work for people who are the most vulnerable in society. I've also worked for the most intelligent people who also have been victims of scams perpetrated by very sophisticated salespeople. All of them experience surprise initially that they have been scammed. In fact, some are in complete denial and won't take any action or even hear a bad word against the people who've actually taken their money. Once the penny has dropped, people are often angry, and who can blame them? After that, people often feel embarrassed. Some people won't even tell their family or friends that they might perhaps have lost their life savings. Others don't go on to seek redress because they feel that it may reflect badly on them. My advice to people is don't feel embarrassed. It does happen to all sorts of people all the time. Do go on social media and raise awareness of your particular scam. In that way you might prevent others suffering the way you have. I would also urge people to go to a lawyer and see whether you can recover your monies, because that is possible sometimes. When a client comes to me and explains that they have been a victim of a scam or mis-selling, the first thing I do is look at whether the arrangement they've entered into is actually a fraudulent arrangement or whether it's mis-selling. If it is a fraudulent arrangement, then I think everyone's obliged firstly to go to the police or perhaps the FCA, if it's a collective investment or money laundering, and see whether the police can take some action to catch that person. Often, however, these scammers, they operate in the grey area between fraud and perhaps mis-selling. In those circumstances, police often aren't interested, and it falls to the victim to go to a lawyer who will take the matter through the civil courts. As a lawyer who does that, I will look at the arrangement and identify exactly whether it was mis-selling or fraud. You then look at where the money's gone and see whether it's still there and can be recovered. Often scammers use companies which then go into liquidation or disappear. Perhaps they're offshore companies even. In those circumstances, you might want to see who's behind the company, whether it's a director or a shadow director, and see whether you can take a claim against that person personally. Sometimes that person may have disappeared or even be in prison. In those circumstances, what I do as a professional is see whether there's some other way of getting some recompense, of getting your money back. If it's an arrangement that's actually involved a professional in some way to facilitate the transfer of money from you to the fraud, then it is sometimes possible to take a claim against that professional. If that professional hasn't been careful, perhaps done their proper due diligence, then there may be a claim against that person themselves. Certainly with solicitors, every solicitor has to be insured for this type of professional negligence, and in that case you may well have a claim against that insurance policy.